Hello and welcome to People and Profit. I'm Charles Pellegrin. We're at the 2023 Paris Air Show for a special edition coming up. We'll check in with one of the world's leading aircraft manufacturers to see how the industry is bouncing back after the pandemic. Forget the Hindenburg. We'll meet the startups that are betting on airships as a sustainable option for the future of air cargo and passenger travel. And we'll take a look at the challenges of building a hybrid electric airplane with French startup Voltero. Even before the air show started, leading manufacturers Airbus and Boeing set the tone. When it comes to demand for air travel, the only way is up. Leading U.S. manufacturer is forecasting that the global fleet of airplanes will double to over 48,000 by 2042 on the back of rising global growth. Earlier, I spoke to Brendan Nelson, Vice President of Boeing Global, about this rebound and the continued challenges the company is facing.
When you think what we've been through, Charles, over the last 4 years, the aviation industry, it's uplifting. It's inspiring to be able to come to Paris for a start, come to the Paris Air Show and see the extraordinary range of exhibits that are available, the interest from customers, both in the commercial and in the defence space. And I think France, and Paris in particular, should be proud of what it has delivered with this air show, and from a Boeing perspective, we couldn't be happier.
There's a very specific context at Boeing as well, with the last 4 years being extremely difficult with those two fatal crashes in 2019, leading to the deaths of 346 people. What have these past 4 years been like for Boeing within that particular context?
It has been an extraordinary turnaround for our company. Every aspect of the way in which we drive safety and quality through everything that we do in the company, beginning with engineering excellence. It has been impressed upon every part of the company, flowing from those two tragedies of the MAX crashes to change. There has been obviously a significant investment in the 737 family of planes. We are, of course, immensely confident in the aircraft following the return to flight and certification, and that, of course, is reflected in the sales of the aircraft itself. Along with our competitors, of course, we've also been through the once-in-a-century global pandemic. And when you think back to where we all were just 2 years ago, and now our biggest challenge is meeting the demand for aircraft from customers, and the resilience of the aviation market and the demand for flight from people is just extraordinary.
Speaking of that demand, some of those issues you're talking about or referring to are these supply chain issues. Can you explain to us what's behind these supply chain issues? Why are these happening?
Well, there are a number of reasons why the supply chain issues have emerged. We've had a confluence of events. We've had the global pandemic, which of course has had an impact on every aspect of every economy in every country. Then, of course, the geopolitical tensions which exist throughout the world. There are tensions in the Indo-Pacific, and then, of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the impact that that's had on supply chains for everybody in the aviation industry, let alone other industries themselves. And then at the same time, a growth in the demand for aviation, which our CEO, Dave Calhoun, says he's not seen in his considerable business career in aviation. So at the moment, we're doing everything we can forward deploying resources into our suppliers, embedding people with our suppliers. We're looking at new suppliers coming into our supply chain, introducing technologies, growing inventories, and at this stage we think we'll see supply chain challenges for our company go through all of this year and well into 2024. But we're managing it, and most importantly, we're not chasing rate. We are growing our rate for 737 and 787 in particular, but not chasing that at the risk of quality or of safety, or indeed to get ahead of our suppliers.
Speaking of that booming demand post-pandemic, where is that demand coming from? And going forward, where do you think those reservoirs of demand will be coming from?
Well, firstly, it's everywhere. So about 40% of that growth is in the Asia-Pacific region, and China accounts for half of that growth. In South Asia, for example, 7% growth over the next decade. and India, of course, will account for most of that. We see Northern America and Europe as about 20% respectively, and then a small percentage, around 3% for Eurasia and Russia. But overall, growth is just extraordinary. The Gulf states, the Middle East and South Asia is where we're going to see growth in excess of other parts of the world.
And one last question, going back to that geopolitical context that's really changed in the last 4 years. One of the big issues has to do with China and Beijing increasingly talking about economic self-reliance, economic sovereignty. COMAC with its first commercial maiden flight for its rival to the 737. Is that a concern for Boeing?
Look, China is an emergent superpower, and of course China wishes to produce its own commercial aeroplane, and we are supportive of that. The very first meeting that I had at the Paris Air Show was with the executive of COMAC. The C919 is a good plane, it's a safe plane. We think that by 2050 that COMAC will probably capture around 10% of the market, but that will be a much larger market for all of the producers of aeroplanes, including us. Let's keep in mind that 80% of humanity has not yet flown on an aeroplane, and we owe it to every human being who wishes to be able to fly, to connect to their families, to their culture, to the rest of the world, and to one another.
Brendan Nelson is Vice President of Boeing Global. Thank you very much for being with us on France 24.
My pleasure, Charles.
Well, sustainability is one of the major themes at Le Bourget this year, and there's one type of flying machine from a bygone era that's making a comeback as a way to travel across the skies in a cleaner fashion. Well, France 24's Yuka Royer from the business desk has been checking it out.
Well, Charles, we may see airships return in a big 21st century way. More than 120 years since the first Zeppelin took flight, and 86 years after the Hindenburg disaster, a number of startups are preparing to launch new types of this lighter-than-air aircraft as a low-carbon option to carry cargo or passengers. Not just for carrying ads. Electric-powered airships are set to drive up demand for their versatility and adaptability to different terrains, and for their tiny carbon footprint. Where the roads end, flying whales will take over. That's the concept at this French tech firm. Using 180,000 cubic meters of helium, its airship, which will be much larger than the model displayed here at 200 meters long, is especially designed to carry heavy loads of up to 60 tons, including a complete mobile hospital unit.
The goal there is to bring an infrastructure which is modular, so you have different modules and you can set it up depending on what you need. And then once you deploy it, you do your surgery, you do everything you have to do, and then you bring it back to the major city where you can maintain it and update so that people get access to the best in terms of world-class machines close to their place at a limited cost because shared with many cities.
Around the world in 80 days? Nope, in just 20 days is what this airship promises to do in completely carbon-free air travel. With solar panels covering a surface the size of a football pitch, this aircraft will use solar energy by day and hydrogen fuel cells by night to power itself.
Our rigid airship technology allows it to fly in any weather, so it can be operated every day. That means it's profitable. Many people dream of having this kind of flying experience. It's very quiet, with a 360-degree view. It offers great comfort, and of course, the main point is that it doesn't emit CO2.
The company expects the global airship market to grow to $40 billion in the next 20 years.
The global aviation industry represents about 3% of all global carbon emissions and has the stated goal of reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. And a number of new innovations and technologies are supposed to help it get there. for instance, hydrogen or sustainable aviation fuels or electric energy, obviously. And one French startup, Voltero, specializes in that latest tech, electric energy, with its latest plane, the Casio 330, presented at Le Bourget in this 2023 edition. CEO Jean Botti is joining us now on People and Profit. Thank you very much for being with us. First of all, tell us more about how this hybrid electric plane, the Casio 330, works. Its primary source of energy is the electric engine.
Correct. All takeoff and landings and taxiing are electric, and up to flights of 150 kilometers, it's electric. And then when you extend the range, you become hybrid, basically. And you can use a pure, a hybrid electric thermal, or you can decide to extend only thermal. So that will be the choice of the pilot, basically.
And the plan is to build 3 different generations of this Casio plane, with the third generation being the Casio 600 that will be able to transport about 12 passengers, if I'm correct. Do you see eventually at one point an electric engine airplane being able to play the role that commercial airliners are currently playing?
Not in pure electric, to be honest. It will have to be an hybrid. It will have to be an hybrid that can be. We are very keen for electric takeoff landings because this is very important to us, But to extend the range, we will be able to go with hydrogen, for example, in the future. We can adapt this also to SAF fuels. That's no problem. But for us, it's not only a CO2 reduction emission that you have to look at. You also have to look at noise pollution. And being able to take off, taxi, land in electric is very good for operations that you want to do, like medical evacuation, freight transportation. Those are things that we can do with our airplane.
Do you have plans to ensure that the energy used for your electric engines comes from non-CO2 sources?
Sure. I'm not an influencer of that. I'm trying to make sure. That's why we're developing the SAF, we're developing the hydrogen. At the same, we're going to have, in 2024, we will have an electric hydrogen aircraft flying. So you're saying we are preparing the bricks, technology bricks, to be ready, but we're not the influencers of that. It's difficult for us. But we're hoping that things will evolve with time.
Jean Botti is the CEO of Voltero. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this special edition of People and Profit at the Paris Air Show. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on our various social media channels, and you can watch all of our previous editions on our website, France24.com. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and stay tuned to France 24.